You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly and the fellas got a commitment over the weekend from P.J. Woodland. He's a three-star athlete out of the state of Mississippi. I'll give you some of the specs, then I'll give you a reaction to it. So, P.J. Woodland, three-star, 6 foot, 165-pounder. He's the number 19 overall athlete in the country. So he's listed as an athlete, but LSU's recruiting him as a defensive back, so he'll play corner in Baton Rouge. So the number 19 athlete in the country, a guy who was committed to Mississippi State and then last week decommitted from Mississippi State. LSU put on the full court press along with Ole Miss there in state and Auburn as well. And then LSU ultimately got the commit. Woodland was in Baton Rouge for the LSU-Auburn game and then was supposed to go to Alabama-Tennessee and decided to come back to Baton Rouge this weekend for the LSU-Army game. So you knew LSU was in a really good spot right there. This is an obvious replacement for Andre Evans. Andre Evans was the longtime LSU commit out of the Nashville area who last week flipped from LSU to Georgia. So it left a hole in LSU's class, and ultimately they get P.J. Woodland to commit, flipping him from Mississippi State. So a couple of things. I know the tendency usually is when you see a guy that's a three-star, you tend to maybe to not be as impressed. I think that's probably just natural that we would kind of fall into that trap of seeing a guy that's not highly rated. For example, he's a three-star. The On3 industry ranking has him as the number 559 overall player, the number 19 athlete in the country, the number 18 player in the state of Mississippi. So you might go, man, you lost a high 4-star that flipped to Georgia, and now you get a 3-star. One of the things that I often say is I'm not necessarily concerned with a player's star ranking or rating as much as I am with who he has offers from, because that is far more telling. And look at P.J. Woodland's offer list. His offer list is everybody. Of course, he committed to LSU. He had been committed previously to Mississippi State. So look at this offer list. LSU, Ole Miss, Tulane, Texas, Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida State, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Cincinnati, Louisville, Southern Miss. You got some of the smaller schools, UNLV mixed in there as well, Memphis. So this goes to tell you Arkansas State, ULL, Georgia State. This goes to show you, and it tells you the story. This was a guy who going into his senior year was listed about 5'11", 155, undersized guy, had a lot of G5 offers, and had an offer from Mississippi State. Well, he goes and camps at different places, performs really well, gets bigger throughout his senior season. You're seeing a late bloomer, a guy who, as he's going from 16 to 17 to 18 years old, is coming into his own and developing, and he's getting on everybody's radar. So, yes, you could look at him right now as a 3-star and number 559 nationally or whatever it is that they have him in that composite. But really what's important is look at all the offers that he has. That's a dude who clearly, as he's gone along his high school career, has continued to improve and get all these offers. And that ranking will follow. Usually as you go through a senior year and they update rankings, and then right before signing day, you'll see the final rankings, not only the November signing period, or the December signing period, but then also the traditional signing period in February when you'll have the final rankings. So let's see what that looks like if you're someone who concerns yourself with star ratings. Mostly what I look at is I go, this dude had offers from everybody. I mean, it's a situation where it's pretty clear. I'll give you an example of someone LSU didn't get. Keon Coleman. We all know that name now because he's killing it at Florida State. But that was a kid out of Opelousas who was a Tulane commit. I want to remind you, Keon Coleman was a Tulane commit. Late in the process, he finally gets a Power 5 offer from Michigan State. Goes up to East Lansing, keeps growing, developing, getting better. Transfers to Florida State. Now he's a first-round pick projection. Sometimes dudes get better from 18, 19, 20 than they do at 15, 16, 17. And maybe that's the case here with P.J. Woodland as you're catching him late in his high school career on the way up. And let me also remind you, this is a kid from Mississippi who had been committed to in-state Mississippi State. Ole Miss was pressing him late after the decommit, and you got this kid out of Mississippi away from Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So that's a win. Two teams in your division, and you went into that state and got a player that you wanted. And it was a player at a position that you needed, right? You've got 3 cornerback commits already with Juwan Johnson out of LCA, Wallace Foster out of Warren Easton in New Orleans, and then Kai Bates, who's a 4-star out of Orlando. You had Andre Evans out of Tennessee who flipped to Georgia, and so now getting P.J. Woodland, that sort of replaces that spot where you had Andre Evans. So you've got 4 commitments for this class at corner to go along with a few safeties as well, including Deshaun McBride, who's the highest-rated commit in your class. And then you look at the cornerback room for next year. Zy Alexander can return if he wants. J.K. Johnson should be, the Ohio State transfer who's missed this season with the foot injury, should be back, healthy, see how he might look. I think it's fair to say right now, Deuce Chestnut, Denver Harris, their futures are up in the air. I think that's fair to say. Certainly Deuce Chestnut. We'll see about Denver Harris. And then you've got a lot of young scholarship guys that are developing. LaTerrence Welch is getting a lot of playing time this year. Guys like Ashton Stamps, Jeremiah Hughes. Stamps was not dressed this past weekend, but Hughes got his first playing time. Ryan Robinson is another scholarship guy that you have. And then the 4 commits you have right now, and that's before you even look at what might be there in the transfer portal. So LSU's being diligent, trying to rebuild the cornerback room through the high school ranks to build your numbers up with scholarship players out of the high school ranks and then supplementing with the portal. The last 2 years, you've had to do the majority of your heavy lifting at that position through the portal. Now what you've been able to do now is come behind with 2 recruiting classes to build your numbers with the young guys and supplement at the top with the portal, which you may have to do 1 more year. But instead of going to get 4 corners out of the portal, maybe you get 1. If there's a really good corner out of the portal that would make sense to bring in, that could be a day 1 starter for you. But overall, you can see what they're doing. It's nice they're rebuilding that room after it was a depressed number after the COVID year, then after Ed Ogeron got fired, and you had Ricks and McGlothern leave, and then you had Raydarius Jones and Demarius McGee transfer out, and you just had no numbers. LaTerrence Welch was your only guy you had recruited out of the high school ranks that was still here. You're building that back. It's taken 2 cycles, but you're building those numbers back up again, and P.J. Woodland out of Mississippi is the latest. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.